The term anti-pattern has come into project management from the software engineering world via the Agile community. But what does it mean? The term anti-pattern was coined by the software engineer Andrew Koenig in his 1995 article Patterns and Anti-Patterns. Later, the 1998 book Anti-Patterns popularised the idea further and extended it beyond the world of software engineering into software architecture and project management. So, what is an anti-pattern? An anti-pattern in project management is a commonly occurring behaviour, practice or approach that, despite being used a lot and seeming effective, tends to produce poor outcomes. So, rather than improving the process, anti-patterns tend to hinder progress. They can arise from a lack of understanding, from fear, from pressure, from resistance, or simply from ingrained practices and behaviours and habits. So, anti-patterns are habitual responses to the kind of problems that arise that feel like good solutions, but are actually detrimental to what we're trying to do. 4 key characteristics of anti-patterns is that they, first, occur frequently. The same flawed approaches tend to be repeated again and again and again across multiple teams and multiple projects and multiple organisations. Secondly, they have a strong surface appeal. They appear to fix problems, to solve and resolve issues, even though they don't. Third, they have adverse consequences. Over time, the use of an anti-pattern tends to lead to inefficiencies, conflicts, waste, reduced morale, and failure to meet objectives. And fourth, better alternatives do exist. True anti-patterns have alternative, more effective solutions. The problem is, they sometimes require more effort and a change in mindset. The software engineering world has a lot of documented anti-patterns, and so too does the Agile community. But I am interested particularly in specific project management anti-patterns. So let's have a look at some examples. Over-planning, or death by planning, is when project managers try to put too much detail into their plans and leave no room for contingencies, for innovation and creativity, or resolution of the kinds of issues that crop up day after day, time after time throughout our project. Ignoring stakeholders and the feedback they give us means that we miss out on useful advice, useful feedback, useful commentary, and therefore, as a result, we tend to produce the wrong solutions or suboptimal solutions. Or even if we produce the right solutions, we end up with disappointed stakeholders, customers and users because they don't feel like they've had a chance to put their comments into the process. This can lead to dissatisfaction, the need for expensive rework, or even a project failure. Unrealistic deadlines, often with little mechanism to adjust them, arise from typically overconfidence or poor exploration of what's really going on. Instead, you need to understand the complexity, the dependencies, the availability of resources that have a real impact on what kind of schedule you can achieve. No amount of wishful thinking is going to wish away resource bottlenecks. Equally, over-allocating resources is another problem, and this is what happens when we put resources to work, doing more things than they can cope with. This leads to stress and mistakes. Typically, to protect ourselves from stress, we tend to focus on what we think is most important. But sometimes that doesn't match what our project manager or our stakeholders or users think is most important, which means important things get left undone. The ultimate result is burnout in our team members and mistakes and quality deficits in our products and deliverables. A one-size-fits-all approach is the anti-pattern of having a simple method for delivering your project, which you apply time after time after time after time after time. Our job as project professionals is to take everything we know and put it all into tailoring a custom solution for each project, which depends on the nature of the project, the context in which we're delivering it, and the people that we have available to us. Because if we're not doing that, then we're never going to have an optimal process and tool set for our projects. Scope creep is one of my favourite anti-patterns to talk about. If we don't have a proper method for controlling requests for change, then we will end up dedicating resources and time to things that we cannot justify. Scope creep leads to project failure, to disappointment, and to a waste of money. My next anti-pattern is command and control leadership, which of course can be appropriate in certain circumstances, but is very rarely, if ever, appropriate in the context of project management. We have skilled experts and specialists and dedicated professionals who want to do well. Command and control is the last approach we want to take to leading them. My favourite alternative is to base your leadership on the concept of servant leadership. This way, people feel empowered, their enthusiasm and morale and commitment to the project increase, they get more done and they do better work, and they feel proud of what they've created. Another anti-pattern is to use milestones as micromanagement tools. I'm on record as advocating lots of milestones on our project, but I believe they should be there as a way to celebrate progress and achievement, not as a way of micromanaging individuals. Yes, we do need to track progress so that we can understand the risks and the progress that we're making. But the main reason to have those milestones is to celebrate progress, not to make people feel bad because we're constantly watching what they do and criticising their lack of progress. This can create unnecessary stress and a checkbox mentality, which leads to people trying to tick off their milestones without paying proper attention to the quality of the work they're doing. Perhaps the opposite to over-planning, which I started with, is management by crisis. Doing too little planning and then waiting for things to go wrong before trying to manage them and plan our way out of them. This creates poor quality work and leads to stress and burnout. Sometimes known as fire drill, this anti-pattern is characterised by long periods of tedium, followed by short, urgent periods of stressful, rapid-fire action, before settling down into another period of tedium. A much better cadence for all projects is one of gentle peaks and troughs, where people are feeling busy and energised all of the time, but do have short periods where they can relax and rest and recoup their energy, ready for the next push. Tracking too many metrics creates a data for data's sake anti-pattern. Chasing the numbers, focusing too much on data, means that it distracts us from getting the real work done. There's a saying in the medical profession that if you're going to order a test, you have to know how the results of that test are going to affect either your diagnosis or your prescription. The same should be true in the project management world. A related anti-pattern is over-analysis of the data, or analysis paralysis. That is, delaying decisions far too long until you've got the perfect understanding of what's going on, when that perfect understanding is not a reasonable requirement. Communications overload or communications underload represent anti-patterns where we either over-communicate or we don't give people enough information. And of course, a related and familiar anti-pattern is death by PowerPoint. The idea that people get bored in a presentation by too much tedious PowerPoint and not enough valuable insight and actionable ideas. Next, we have a lack of clear responsibility and accountability. People don't feel they know enough about what is expected of them and what their role is. They don't want to tread on someone else's toes. They don't want to do something inappropriate, so they don't act effectively. This can lead to a lack of ownership and a lack of initiative. And a related anti-pattern is sometimes known as a Blowhard Jamboree. The idea of having loads of experts in a room who all want to have their say because they've got an opinion, but they don't want to roll up their sleeves and get stuck in to doing real work. Documentation is, of course, important in many projects, but documentation for its own sake creates a whole industry of work which adds no value to the project, and so is an anti-pattern too. And finally, endless meetings with no action items and no decisions taken. Meetings that are just there to allow people to talk. Those are an anti-pattern. So, anti-patterns are habitual ways of doing things which are familiar, feel comforting, but ultimately don't produce good results. Instead, they produce detrimental results which make things worse. Look for anti-patterns in your ways of delivering projects and in your current project today, and get rid of them. Replace them by a better way of doing things, even if that takes more work and requires a change in attitude from you and your team. Please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be making loads more great project management videos, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.